Okay, so as you can see from the title, I'm going to go through the biggest mistakes that I nearly made during my veneer course. So, for those of you that don't know, last weekend I went to Glasgow in Scotland for a veneer course. So, it was a 3 day workshop, and I went through all the different styles of veneer preps. I'm talking sliced veneers, I'm talking vertipreps. Yeah, we went through everything from A to Z, bonding protocols, the temporization phase. Now, here are some of the biggest mistakes that I nearly made, and also made during the course. And here are certain things that I've learned. The two-hand technique. So prior to this course, I use one hand. I use one hand to hold the drill. I use one hand to refine my preparations. Now, the instructor encouraged us to use two hands, so to use the opposing hand to guide the burr in sweeping motions, and to use our dominant hand to pull the burr or pull the handpiece, towards the press. So you're pulling and then you're pushing, but then you're using your opposing hand to steady the handpiece. So that was a big tip, and it's something that I actually got to practice during the program, and I found it I found that I had much more control of the handpiece, and I think there was just more precision. So that for me is a game changer, the two-hand technique. Okay, another thing that I found that was super important in this program. I have a list. I'm going to go in no particular order. The next thing is, let's just say, not having loops. So I don't use loops. I've occasionally used a microscope by Zoomax. Loops are imperative, because it's going to bring me on to the next point. Before I get on to the next point, with loops, you see everything. And I was recommended to get 5 times magnification loops, because it brings me on to the next point. Finishing in enamel. This is one of the most important principles in veneer design. Finishing in enamel. It makes an extraordinary difference to the longevity and success of your veneers if you finish in enamel compared to finishing in dentine. And a remarkable, renowned Turkish dentist that I can't remember the name of off the top of my head. However, this is a world-class specialist. He conducted a study that determined veneers finished in dentine are 10 times more likely to fail in comparison to veneers finished in enamel. And here here's what will not most of you probably already know. There's only 0.3 millimeters of enamel in the cervical third of the label aspect of the incisors and of most teeth. So that was a big, like, you were literally just adding a finishing line to there's no shoulders, there's no chamfer, just a finishing line to the cervical third, the label aspect of your incisor, your lateral incisor, whatever. So that's another big thing. So of course, not having loops, it's going to be difficult to determine if you're still in enamel. So both having loops and finishing in enamel, those are two big things. Another thing I learned is you need to be in control of the mock-up phase. Now, I've been guilty of just taking pictures, establishing the defects if there's diastema, a black triangle, uneven tooth, uneven proportions, and I just send it to the technician. I'm like, look, correct this or rectify this. Come up with a better design, and then placing the design in the patient's mouth. The patient looks at it, the patient's like happy, and I'm like, okay, let's go ahead. No, my instructor encouraged me to do an intraoral mock-up myself by placing composite paste onto the teeth, showing the patient, getting an idea of what they like about it and what they don't like, making the necessary adjustments, taking an impression, then sending that off to my lab technician to make a wax up using my intraoral mock-up as reference. So doing the intraoral mock-up myself is recommended. And that's what's going to separate me from being mediocre. And that's the words of my instructor, Dr. Hatik Verman. And lastly, and I probably should have put this first, but it's probably not the most exciting or sexy one to mention, occlusion. Many veneers fail because of occlusal interferences, because of a lack of space anteriorly as well. And I was shown how to deprogram the vite, how to determine centric relation, and how to transfer patients' occlusal records onto an articulator. So I was given a recommendation to buy a Cois facial analyzer. Now that is a device that can be used instead of a face bow. And it's much easier to use this device because you can send the discs that you use to take these records off the technicians rather than sending a bifork and jig. Of course, with the bifork and jig, you only have a limited number at your practice. With the Cois facial analyzer, you can buy several discs, hundreds. So those are 5 big things that I learned this past weekend, and things that I'm definitely going to add to my practice, and things that I'm delighted that I was exposed to. I'm going to get loops, 5 times magnification. Of course, finish an enamel, that's the goal. Make sure that I establish the patient's occlusion. Get the dental facial analyzer. And of course, do the intraoral mock-up myself. That way I have more control in the design phase. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Any suggestions? Of course, let me know.